Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards and today's session is going to be focused on combination play to play through the lines. But before we get into today's video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's session, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into part one of this week's session, we're looking at a setting and moving drill. But before we get into the session, let's have a look at how many players we've got this week and the equipment that we need. Okay, so we've got 14 players this week, so we're going to be splitting the group into two to start with for this part of the drill, so 7 and 7. In terms of equipment, we need balls, bibs and cones for the whole session. And if you have poles for this part of the session, that'd be great for the middle areas here in the wide place, just to give the players an alternative to get around as if it's a defender. They can use the pole to work around the defender, but if you don't have poles, we can just use cones. It's just an alternative. In terms of the setup for this part of the session, we've got 20 yards of depth, 5 yards from the first cone to the first player in here, 10 yards in the middle for the middle players to move in, and then 5 yards again from the player in here up to the end cone. And then in terms of width, we've got 20 yards, so it's 10 yards from the first player out wide here into the middle, and then another 10 yards to the opposite side. But the players out wide can move out a little bit further to receive the ball on the back foot. So how the session's going to work, we're going to be setting and moving the ball into the middle to play high, to then play wide, so we're trying to penetrate the opposition. Okay, so the ball's going to start with the player in here. The two players in the middle are going to be moving. They're going to be moving in the opposite direction. Okay, so the player who is highest here will move one side, which means then the other player will move the other side. Okay, so this player will play the ball in. Want a nice first time pass to set the ball to our teammate, who's then going to play another first time pass to play high. The player who receives it here can then play either to the left or to the right. The next time that we go the opposite way. So this player is going to go to the right hand side. This player is going to move out to receive on the back foot, going to take the ball in a stride and then play the ball. Okay, so in terms of the movement for this part of the session, the player who was here, whatever side that they played out wide, they will go to there. The player who was highest in the middle will move up one. The player who was deepest in the middle will move up one, and the player who first played the pass will move up one as well. So they're just moving up one in the middle, and then once they play from high here, they play out wide, and then they'll eventually make their way back to the middle. So then when we go this time, when the ball gets to the player here, they'll play out to the left hand side because we've gone to the right the last time. A little progression that we can do is when the ball does get out here, instead of playing in and receiving on the back foot and playing, player here can receive the ball, set it back, get their movement, and then the player can play a nice pass in here for them to run onto and then play again. Okay, so we just got a little different variation for the players to use. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to the next part of this week's session. Okay, so moving into part two of this week's session, we're now moving into a drill which is based on playing through the lines, so breaking the lines in terms of our movement and then playing the passes. Okay, so a lot of our play right now, the players are broken into different zones. We've got different areas put into the pitch, so that players are working on their movements a lot. So in terms of the setup for this part of the session, we've got 32 yards of width. Each box in the middle has got 8 yards of width, and the two wide areas have got 4 yards. The end zone is going to be half the size of the area in the middle, so 16 yards of width. In terms of the depth, we've got 30 yards of depth in the middle, so we've got 10 yards for each box, so each box is 8 by 10, so there's plenty of room for the players to manoeuvre, and then the end zone is just 5 yards. So the aim of the game here is that we're trying to work the ball to the players in our end zones, and you swap over with the player in the end zone with the player who plays in. The players out wide can swap over when a player plays into them, or when they receive it, they can take a touch out, which means one of the players has then got to go and fill that wide area. So we do an example here. What we want is, we don't want players from the same team especially in the same area. Okay, so we're trying to create space to pull the opposition out, and then we can find passes through. Okay, so if we're playing into the reds here, and we're spread out the way we are right now, we've now got passes on to play through. Okay, because we've got movements, we can move out here as well. We've got players moving out here, so it's encouraging the players to move into different boxes to receive the ball. Okay, what we have a rule is every player in the middle has to touch the ball before it goes to play in the end zone. It doesn't have to go to a player out wide every time, but we want to get a player out wide involved so that we can interchange as well, so we can get a lot more movement. So we might play from the reds in here into here, and then that movement can be out to here, and then we have the player out wide who might have started in here, making a run to then play out. Then it might take a touch away, so then we've got our late runner from midfield to play into, to then play into the end zone, which would then mean the player out wide comes in, the player who was in the middle goes out wide. We can get some movement from this player here to go somewhere else. The player on the opposite side out wide can move and go a bit higher. And then the player who was in the end zone swaps, brings the ball out, and then looks to start the play. So we might play a ball in here, which then triggers this player to make a move, play in. We could have the wide man making a run, or we can play straight into the end zone. So we don't want the players, if they don't play to the wide player, it can only be on one attack. At the next attack, we want them to play into the attacking player. What they've got to be aware of is that the Blues are playing at the same time. So the Blues players might start moving around, and when the red player is trying to receive in here, this player in here might be receiving from this blue player. So then if we're looking to receive it from here, and we're blocking other people's movements. Okay, so we are unopposed, but we're kind of opposed at the same time, because without even knowing it, the players have got to move around, because the other players on the other team are trying to find similar spaces. Okay, so they've got to be aware, they've got to be scanning the surroundings and just be aware of where the Blues are and where I can make my run into space. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the progression for this part of the session. Okay, so moving into the progression for this part of the session, we've now removed all of the zones, okay? So we've got our 32 yards of width, our 30 yards of depth, and then our 2 end zones. So the players are actually out the end zone now. So we want them to receive the ball in the end zone to score. So we've got a 7v7 scenario in here now. So we've got to work on all the movement that we've been working on, get our height, width, and depth in possession, to then combine, to create space, to then play in. So what the aim for the players is, so the coach will play in to one of the teams, so he's going to play into the Reds here. The Reds will try and manoeuvre the ball to create space, okay, for then somebody to go and receive in the end zone. As soon as that happens, they then go and try and attack the other side. Okay, so then the Blues are going to try and stop them from getting out. We might get a player coming into the middle to receive it. Can we get some movement to create some space? But then the Blues might win it back. We try to play a pass in here. The Blues intercept it. Can we go and score instantly? Okay, so can we get them forward runs to then go and penetrate? So we play a nice ball here. Player gets the ball in here, and then can we score? Okay, so it is tight in there, so we want the players to get that pitch nice and wide, to create space in the middle for players to come into the middle, to combine the play. So when we play in, can we play a nice quick ball, play out, play through, bring some of their players in, to then maybe take it wide and then go and score. Okay, so we're just taking out all of the zones, making it a lot quicker for the players now. They've got to be even more aware, and now they are opposed, so they can be tackled. So they've got to be obviously scanning the surroundings. The first touch has got to be good. And then from the first drill, when we were setting and moving, can we get that movement? So when we know somebody's going to get the ball, where can I move to then receive the ball nice and quickly? And then what's my options further up the pitch? We will now move into our next animation before moving on to this week's 4-corner model. Okay, so moving into this week's 4-corner model, starting off with technical and tactical. First off, movement to receive the ball. So we speak a lot about this when we're doing possession sessions and attacking sessions. So in possession, we've got to move to receive the ball. So in the first part of the drill, with our setting and moving, the first player moves to one side to then create space for the teammate to move the opposite side. So then it's harder for the defenders to follow, because when they're going to follow one player, they are leaving space to the side and in behind. So then can we look to penetrate by then the next player sensing that, to then move into that space for us to set and play. Scanning our surroundings, so before we're receiving the ball, can we have a look at where the space is on the pitch, where players are running into, so then we can get an idea, a picture in our head of where we're going to be playing. Receiving skills then, so receiving on the back foot. So in the first part of the session, when we're receiving out wide to then play forward. Same in this part of the session now. If we're receiving in wide areas, to then look to play forward. We're not going to receive with a closed body, okay? We're going to open up to receive on the back foot, and then we can go either way. So we've got end zone to our left and to our right. So where's the most space? Which player has got more options if I pass to them? Whereas if I'm just facing one way, I know that I can only play to that player, or there might be 2 players, and there's 4 players on the opposite side of the pitch. Okay, so it's scanning our surroundings to then open our body up to then look to play out and create and penetrate the opposition again by playing forwards. Creating space, so we spoke about that already with movement to receive, creating space for our teammates, okay? You might just even be getting the ball, you might be pulling the defender out a few yards for then a player to make a forward run in between the lines to receive from a winger or a fullback or a defender, which then means that we can get forward, and then that run that we've created, we can then follow that up by running in behind the defender then. So then we've created space for our teammate and then ourselves as well. And then finally, moving the ball quickly. Okay, so the quicker we move the ball, the harder it is for the opposition to follow where it's going all the time, to keep the positional shape. Whereas if the ball's moving slowly, it's easier for them to get across and easier for them to know where the ball's going to go. Whereas if we're playing 1 or 2 touch football and we've got that movement and we're receiving the ball really well, the first touch is opening our options, okay, then it's harder for the opposition to defend against. Looking at the psychological corner this week, first off, spatial awareness. Okay, so especially when we're working in tight areas like we were in the progression of part 2 then, we're working in an area which has got 7v7 with just 30 yards of width. Okay, so we've got to be aware of the space around us, so we're scanning our surroundings to see what's there, to then know, can I pull off to the right-hand side to receive the ball? Can I go towards the ball? Can we work double movements so I can get away from the defender? So recognising the players that you're up against as well. So if you're up against a defender that is, quite strong and physical, but isn't that quick, can you get that double movement to go towards the ball to then get that speed to move away? Okay, decision making. Okay, so when we're receiving the ball, having a picture in our head of where we're going to play, making the right decision early, not taking too long on the ball. So this is the important thing about when we're creating space and scanning our surroundings, that we can get a picture in our head of where we're going to play, and then when we receive the ball, we know that where that first touch is going to take us, so we're already making our decision before we've got the ball. And then finally, being positive in possession. So we're looking to score, we're looking to break the lines, we're looking to go forward. Okay, so you've got to be able to take risks in them passes as well. Okay, but it's got to be quick. So we've got to make that decision quickly. It's not dwelling on it. So we get the ball, we think about it, and then don't do it. If we're going to do it, we've got to do it quickly. So we see it with the best midfielders in the world, in terms of, the Toni Kroos, the Luka Modric's, the Frankie de Jongs, Andreas Iniesta, even still now playing to this day. Then players make quick decisions on the ball. They look to play through the lines. David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne at Manchester City, they play them risky passes, but they know that if they do it early, it's harder for the opposition to react, and they've got more chance of getting through, and the reward is that they played through, and it's hot, and then they're going to pull the next line of defence up to come and defend, which leaves space in behind. Moving into the physical corner, so we're looking first off with our ABCs, so agility, balance and coordination. So we are receiving the ball in tight areas, so we've got to be able to turn and take those little bits of, body checks off people and nudges, being able to keep the ball, okay, in tight areas, and then look to play out, and then can we get away from people with our agility as well. And then next off, our speed, so short, sharp bursts into space. Okay, can we get that elusiveness to get away from one of the defenders, to create that space to then receive the ball? And then finally, tempo. So the team that's in possession, can we set the tempo for the opposition? Can we set that intensity high? So when we've got the ball, we know that we're working at this set level to keep possession to score. Okay, because the quicker that we set that tempo high, the more chance we've got of everything else coming through in terms of creating that space, moving the ball quickly, and it's improving our decision making when that intensity is high, because our brain is functioning a lot quicker than when it's slow and steady. Okay, and it's the decisions that we're making aren't very challenging. Whereas if we set that tempo high from the off, okay, everything's just faster. Okay, the session is faster. We're working at a higher level. Okay, so it's just better for everybody when that tempo is high. And then finally, our social corner, so communication to receive the ball is huge. Okay, so if you know that you want to receive the ball, but at a certain time, okay, so if you are going to do a double movement, tell a player to hold it. It could just be a simple point. Okay, so when you're moving towards, it's just a point in behind to know that, okay, I'm going to wait for it. Okay, so it's knowing your players as well. So knowing that if the winger's coming short, he's going to go long. Okay, or if the centre forward's gone deep to then come short, then he's going to receive it short. And then what's the trigger then? Can I go and receive it? So if I'm a centre forward and I've gone high and then I'm coming in deep to receive the ball, tell that winger, get in behind. Okay, so we see it with the likes of Roberto Firmino when they come in to receive the ball. Okay, you see Mo Salah and Sadio Mane making those darting runs in between the fullbacks and the centre-backs. So then if he receives the ball and sets it back to a midfielder, or he receives the ball on the half-turn, he knows that he's going to play into those players who are making those forward runs in between the lines to go and penetrate the opposition. And then finally, so encouraging our teammates. So encouraging our teammates to make those runs, encouraging our teammates to make those passes, okay? Because it makes them a better player, and also it helps us as a team. If we can play through the lines and penetrate the opposition, we're going to get our rewards by scoring goals. So encourage our teammates to do it. If the right idea is there and it doesn't come off, oh, it's okay, we can win the ball back and we can try it again. But making sure that we're giving our players lots of praise and supporting them to make them decisions. Okay, so moving into part 3 of this week's session, we're now moving into a more of a possession-based combination game. So we've got 3 teams now, so this is where we're going to split our group into 3. We've got 2 teams of 5 and 1 floating team of 4 with 2 players in the middle. These 2 players will not move out of the middle, and the 2 end zones players will not move out. You can switch them over, so you could swap the 2 end zone players with the 2 middle players whenever you want, but you know they're not allowed to move out of their zones when the game's going on. So in terms of the setup of this part of the session, we've got 47 yards, it can be give or take with this, of depth. So each end zone is 5 yards deep, the middle zone here is 7 yards, and the other 2 zones are 15 yards apiece. And then we've just got 20 yards of width all the way throughout. So the 2 teams of 5, they can move wherever they want. Okay, so you could have a 5v5 in here, but we obviously want the players to spread out. So we can try and create overloads in possession. But when our team has got the ball, we are allowed to receive and move the ball in the middle zone. But we're trying to get these middle players into play, so getting our central midfielders. So similar to in part 1 when we had our 2 players in the middle to set and receive, can we use these players to set, receive the ball and look to play through? So how the play is going to start, we're going to play into one of the teams. Okay, they're going to look to manoeuvre the ball. They can use the player in the end zone here to keep the ball if they need to. And then we're going to look to play through to one of the midfielders. So then we can have our support runs here from one of the wide players to make it even more of an overload. This player here then will look to play the ball into the reds again. We've got our player making a move. Can we play out? And then can we play into the end zone? So there's a goal. There we've scored. We played a nice combination play. We've had movements off the ball to score. And then when the end zone player gets here again, now we're looking to receive the ball and go the opposite way. So then the emphasis for the blue team is, who are out of possession, can we win the ball back and then can we go and score? Okay, so it's making sure that we haven't got too many players just in one area. Can we create overloads? But we've also got the players, the greens, who are our floaters basically in possession to use. Okay, so we can still use this player here. We can use the players in the middle. So getting these players on the ball, especially the ones in the middle, okay, because they can link the play. Okay, in between the lines. That's why we've got this middle zone here. So obviously, if the Reds receive it again, we're looking to play in. Can we get that movement, play out? Can we get some movement, okay, to receive the ball? We might get another forward run, so we might play back across to the other floater in midfield who plays in and plays across here. So then if the Blues do win it back in here, can we get support? Use our link players here. Go the other side where we've got an overload, secure the ball. Can we score? And then can we try and get an attack on the other side? Okay, so create some numbers in here as well. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. For more content, follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. The links will be in the description below, and we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.